Hi everyone, Ken Tumolo, Tumolo Financial. I just wanted to today just touch on a few things that I look for when I'm doing retirement planning. This way, when you're doing your retirement planning, these are a few topics to keep in mind to make sure that you're covering some of the bases. And I'd say this is going to be a quick video, but retirement planning just isn't that quick. There's a lot of pieces to it. First one that I'll touch on is and these are the 5 top things that come up when we're talking with people that we meet with. Social Security, when to start it. Keep in mind that, yes, it's a math problem. One of the big things that people miss is the tax piece of Social Security. It's taxed differently than other accounts. So when planning for retirement, sometimes to keep taxes down, we might start Social Security early rather than later. But then there's other times that we start Social Security later just because it might protect the spouse. And that can go either way too, depending on lifestyle and what you saved, because sometimes starting Social Security earlier protects a spouse. So it's just this big math problem. It's not straightforward, but Social Security timing is a big thing. Have you saved enough for retirement? And not only, let's say you're married. If you're married, you have to also run what I call it the Grimm report. We want to make sure both of you are okay. So if one passes away a little bit sooner than expected, we want to make sure the other person makes it all the way through retirement. So that has to go into the calculation. And sometimes that will actually even go back to the first thing I mentioned, which was Social Security protecting a spouse. So it's really making sure of all these little things. Yes, it's financial, but then there's the what ifs. And we want to make sure those things are covered. So we always want to make sure you're okay going through retirement. You're going to go right through retirement without running out of money. A third thing I will add in, protecting assets. And what I mean by that is later on in life, some of us may need long-term care, and it's expensive. So there's ways to structure your picture to protect some of those assets. There's a couple ways that things are done that I'll point out. Actually, let's say 3 things. One is nothing at all. The second thing is usually insurance. You're transferring the risk to an insurance company. And the third way, there's the legal way of building trust. But there's pluses and minuses to everything is what I want to point out. For an example, a trust cannot protect a 401k or an IRA, but insurance can. But sometimes how you build your plan and how you're going to draw your money and where you're drawing it from, the trust actually might be the best way to go. So it really comes down to how your plan is structured. Let's add one more thing into this, managing for good and bad markets. One thing to look at in your plan, and I know I'm going a little quick, but it really comes down to you always have a place to draw money from, no matter how the market or the economy is going. And what I mean by that, in bad markets where the market's way down, if everything that you have is in stocks, you really don't want to sell those off at a low point. And then compound it by paying taxes too. So really what you want to do is actually have another backup to it. So I always say keep some money in a safe world that earns something, so that when you're in a bad market, bad economy, you draw from that safe world. And there's ways to structure that. This way you're not making changes to your lifestyle based on how the market is going. You're basically just making changes on where you're drawing the money from. One more thing that I will add into this is reducing your taxes in retirement. And I kind of mentioned it on the Social Security piece of it, but it really is, it can move the needle for you. I guess the best way I want to put it. Some of us will go all the way through retirement, drawing our accounts a certain way, and we'll never, ever know that we paid more in taxes than we should have. A big thing that we get involved in is structure and draw plans and figuring out the best way to draw your accounts around Social Security too, because that's a piece of this too that's taxed differently. And then if you have different types of accounts, what we're trying to do by drawing things a certain way is average the taxes down, okay? So just think of it in math. If you're paying taxes of 20% on something and 0% on another thing, and you're pulling the same amount out of both of those accounts, you're really only paying a 10% tax rate. So because you averaged the 20 down by half, because you're averaging it against the 0. So that's really what we go for, is we average different tax rates against each other, because different accounts are taxed differently. Social Security is taxed differently. So what we want to do is average your taxes down over a long period of time so you pay the least amount of taxes. Now think about it. If you're paying less in taxes, that means there's more money in those accounts for you. There's more money in those accounts for you to pass on later on. It also gives you a cushion in retirement, meaning if we go through a bunch of bad markets, you weren't spending a bunch of extra money on taxes, so you should have a little bit extra room to absorb some of the fluctuations of the market. So there's a lot of pluses to it, plus the compounding effect. I could go on and on and on. Anyway, that's a quick, real quick overview of about 5 areas there that we look at when we're planning for retirement. The idea really there is make sure you're not missing out on something because you might not ever know it. Like I said, you might pay a bunch of taxes thinking that, okay, well, this is how I have to draw my accounts. You draw them for 20, 30 years through retirement, pay extra in taxes, and you'll never, ever know. And I guess that's okay, too, if you don't know. I hate to put it that way. But if you do know that there actually might be a better way to keep more money in your pocket, then you want to do it that way. Thank you.